You've got an absolute lunatic running for governor.
Like, he is a magician where, like, you see all the cards up his sleeve. Like, no one is fooled by this. Welcome to Political Experts React, where we break down political ads in media, explain what the people behind them were trying to accomplish, and decide whether or not they did a good job. I'm Dan Pfeiffer, former communications director for Barack Obama, and joining me today is Sarah Longwell, the founder of the Republican Accountability Project, a Never Trump organization. Sarah, welcome to Political Experts React. We're going to do something that is unusual in political analysis. We're going to speak to someone who actually interacts with voters. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Excited.
We've watched over the course of this series over recent months a bunch of primary ads from Republicans. In some cases, they're running in states, and we'll look at one of these later on, where it's a very Republican state. So winning the primary is the same as winning the general election. But can you just help, like, maybe focus a little bit more on the tension that these candidates have running in a Republican primary with what works or does not work with the swing voters you focus on?
Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of focus group work in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, the places that you would think that we would focus on. And they have some things in common. They think January 6th was really bad. They are all vaccinated and think that people should get vaccinated, but they specifically do not like the election denialism. Like, that is the thing that they think is often disqualifying. And if you can get yourself a relatively normie Democrat against one of these firebrand MAGA types, that's where you got yourself a real race.
The first video we're going to watch is a cutdown of a longer campaign announcement from Kari, a Republican running for governor in Arizona.
It's time to take a sledgehammer to the mainstream media's lies and propaganda. The corporate media establishment flat out lies to people, and no one is holding them accountable. They exploit misinformation. They use it to manipulate the masses. They use fear-mongering to create a scared and broken population. It's right out of a communist playbook. The left wants to burn down our businesses, but we'd rather burn these. But if you dare question the narrative, they'll label you a conspiracy theorist. And that's why I'm stepping up to run for governor of Arizona, to get us back on track. I'm ready to take a sledgehammer to the corrupt media, but I will never take a sledgehammer to that big, beautiful wall. As a matter of fact, when I'm governor, we'll finish the damn wall. We don't want Arizona to become a suburb of California. And trust me, when I'm your governor, I'll keep that California crap out of here.
Arizona is obviously a state that Joe Biden won by a tiny margin in 2020. Kyrsten Sinema won it by a similarly close margin in 2018. In order to win the governorship, Kari Lake's going to have to win over some swing voters. What's your analysis on this ad and what she's trying to accomplish?
She's going to have a tough time. Is it going to be a tough environment for Democrats this time around? It is, but the candidates still matter. And there's a bunch of places, Arizona being a marquee race among them, where you've got an absolute lunatic running for governor. She is hitting all of the Republican primary pleasure centers in that ad, right? We got communist, we got the dominatrix outfit, we got against the media, California, we got it all. However, I focus heavily on swing voters and the focus group work that I do. And the pro-January 6th the election was stolen, anti-vax pitch, which she makes hard, right? This is not a Youngkin-like candidate that is trying to, say they're with Trump but have their fingers crossed behind their back. This is a straight up primary appeal that it's going to be very difficult to sort of move to the center and pivot on for these swing voters in Maricopa County, where a lot of these voters might be kind of moderate Republicans, but voted for Joe Biden. And yeah, she's going to be a tough sell for those folks.
And that's sort of Mark Kelly in 2018, Joe Biden in 2020 was an acceptable Democrat that gave you a comfortable place to go if you were uncomfortable with where the Republican Party currently was.
That's exactly right.
Now we're going to watch two ads about J.D. Vance, the author of Hillbilly Elegy and a Republican running for Senate in Ohio.
J.D. Vance is sending a message.
The elites plunder this country and then blame us for it in the process.
And when those Americans dare to complain about the conditions of their own country, if they dare to complain about the southern border or about jobs getting shipped overseas, what do they get called? They get called racist. They get called idiots. They need somebody who's willing to speak for them, who's willing to fight for them.
You really, I think, understand what's gone wrong with the country.
Protect Ohio Values is responsible for the content of this advertising.
J.D. Vance, in his own words.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. As somebody who doesn't like Trump, I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. I didn't vote for Trump because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious, him being really outrageous and offensive.
On Twitter, Vance called Trump, quote, reprehensible, an idiot, and Vance loves Mitt Romney.
I'm a never Trump guy.
That's the real J.D. Vance. Club for Growth Action is responsible for the content of this ad.
I like the real JD Vance.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say, he seems like just the guy the swing voters you talk to be really into. Let's put aside everything else JD Vance does, the seeking the endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene, some of the noxious conspiracy theory stuff he has been involved in throughout this primary, and just maybe focus on this ad. It's a little less, as you say, the pleasure centers of the MAGA base and more straightforward anti-elite argument. Is that an ad that has more currency or maybe less repellent to swing voters?
JD Vance is trying to do a populist thing. He's got to play if he's in the general election. His problem is the primary because he doesn't know how to out MAGA Josh Mandel and everybody in that race, except for there's a guy named Dolan who's like kind of the move on past Trump candidate. But they're all running as like mega, MAGA, mini MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. It's just a bunch of people trying to out MAGA each other. But he does have that ability, I think, to pivot into the kind of Kasich lane down the road. But he's got to get through this Republican primary first. And this is the tension for everybody, right? Is like, you go so hard to win this primary in the lane that he's in right now, which is this hardcore MAGA populist. It gets a little tougher to pivot back into the center.
Only Trump can deliver his message in the way he did because of his decades of brand equity and his showmanship, and people kind of got he was in on the joke. And so a lot of people do it pretty poorly. And I'm constantly looking for someone who can deliver a message that gets sort of the turnout differential between Romney in 12 and Trump in 16 and 20 without turning off the people you're looking at. Is there anything in the JD Vance ad, or is he just such a flawed messenger he can't do that?
JD Vance has so many things working against him. He's railing against big tech, but he's got $10 million of, teal money sitting in his bank account. He's got Club for Growth just hammering him with that second ad on his Never Trump past. The problem for him for the pivot is that he has to go from now trying to say he's the Trump conservative before when he was I'm going to endorse Hillary Clinton because I hate Trump so much. That's a big stretch. Like the thing Mandel has going for him in the Republican primary is everyone believes that he's the psychopath he presents himself to be. Whereas JD Vance just looks muddled and inauthentic. Like everyone knows that this guy's hanging out at Martha's Vineyard with his rich buddies. And like the populist thing just doesn't sit quite right on him.
You can never disentangle message from messenger. And he sort of, like, he is a magician where, like, you see all the cards up his sleeve. Like, no one is fooled by this, right? He cannot get anyone to suspend disbelief on this. Okay, the midterm elections are well underway. You know what that means? Everyone's favorite thing, more campaign ads. You know what that means? Even more episodes of Political Experts React. And you're probably thinking, what if I miss an episode? If you are concerned about that, fear not. Do I even have to say it? You can smash that subscribe button. It'll be delivered directly to you. The people at Big Tech will figure it out. Thank you for bearing with me as I embarrassed myself and shredded what little dignity I still had. Now back to the show. The last ad we're going to look at is from Mo Brooks, who is running for Senate in Alabama.
America does not need any more weakling, cowering, wimpy Republican congressmen and senators.
On January 6, I proudly stood with President Trump in the fight against voter fraud. I'm running for the Senate because I'm tired of debt junkie, weak-kneed, open-border rhinos who sell out our conservative values. That's why President Trump endorses me and why Mitch McConnell opposes us. I'm Mo Brooks, and you better believe I approve this message.
There are many reasons I want to show this ad, mainly to make fun of Mo Brooks, who was recently unendorsed by Donald Trump for saying practically the only non-insane thing Mo Brooks has ever said, by telling reporters that he did not have the legal authority to overturn the election and reinstate Trump. But beyond that, I did want to focus on how a message of running against the Republican Party establishment in a Republican primary works.
I mean, it works well in Alabama. So Donald Trump right now is, I think, demanding two things of people that he endorses. He's definitely saying, right, you have to say that the election was stolen, because that's our number one message. And I also think he wants to hear from people he's endorsing that they will not vote for Mitch McConnell. And so, this was Mo Brooks's I know Trump's about to unendorse me. So how do I get an ad on the air while I still have his endorsement under the wire? And I think he wanted to remind Trump that he was taking on Mitch McConnell. I'll tell you one of the things I think is interesting in that ad, which is that the rhinos that he cites, right? He's got Liz Cheney, he's got Mitch McConnell, and he's got Katie Britt, who's one of the challengers in that race. And she is the sort of Mitch McConnell-ish candidate. There's another guy, Mike Durant. Mike Durant sees an opening with Mo Brooks getting unendorsed, immediately rushes to say that the number one issue for Alabamans is the stolen election. What I love about what's happening in Alabama is there's a lot of Republicans that want to argue right now, people in my world that say Trump's really losing his grip on the Republican Party. And they look at his unendorsement of Mo Brooks and they say his endorsement of Mo Brooks couldn't push Mo Brooks over the finish line. But if you look at Mike Durant coming out to immediately rush to say that the election was stolen, I think that actively demonstrates how strong Trump's endorsement still is, right? He's moved the Overton window to where the less insane candidates have to say that the election was stolen. And my guess is that Mike Durant will find himself also running against the establishment.
I joked that Mo Brooks was unendorsed because he said something non-insane. He was actually unendorsed because he was losing.
Because he was losing. He was third.
There's also, Trump is reportedly revisiting some other endorsements where his candidates are losing. He had a rally recently in Georgia that was lightly attended by Trump standards. His candidate in the governor's race is struggling against Brian Kemp, who is enemy number one of Trump's for his unwillingness to actively steal an election after the votes were cast. He's totally fine with it before the votes, after the votes against it. Is your take that Trump is still strong, or Trumpism is still the currency of the day?
Yeah, I'm saying that everybody has to pay the Trump toll to get through primaries. Brian Kemp is not going to run as like an anti-Trump Republican. However, he went ahead and passed, one of these election integrity laws to try to, solve the problem of voting in Georgia. And so like there's like a nominal case that Trump is insufficient to completely do everything you need to do, but I still think he's necessary.
Yeah, that's interesting that Trump is necessary but insufficient. And I think that was always a little overstated, that his endorsement guarantees your victory. It doesn't necessarily do that. But you cannot run in a Republican primary as an anti-Trump Republican. There is no space for that. Is that correct?
That's right. Who is the example of that? Like even Katie Britt, who's the normie one in Alabama, she's running on Build the Wall, which I don't know why they need the wall in Alabama, but like that's, her big, that's like her big thing. And so like they're all sops to Trump. The guy in McCormick in Pennsylvania, he is a normie Republican, but he still says, let's go Brandon, whenever he gets the chance.
Stephen Miller's on his staff, right?
Stephen Miller's on his staff. Like you got to pay the toll.
Well, this is fascinating. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. It has been great to hear your perspective and hear what actual voters think about these ads. This is great.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for watching these ads and videos with us. If you have anything you'd like us to break down, let us know in the comments. See you next time.